Welcome to Training Unleashed, the show that will help you design and deliver training that's off the chain and will make a difference. Now, here's your host, Evan Hackel.
Thank you for joining us for Training Unleashed. Again, this is Dan Black, VP of Learning Strategy at Tortal Training, and I am joined by our CEO, Evan Hackel, and two magnificent talents in the learning development space at UNCC, Amy Wartham and Margret Rozzi. Amy, Margaret, how are you all doing today?
Terrific.
Great, thank you.
Great. Thank you for being here. Well, we like to make these short, sweet, and informative for our audience of learning development and chief learning officer development folks out there. I would say for our audience, if you're a chief learning officer looking for some innovative solutions to bringing your talent, enhancing your talent, or director of training in an organization, or maybe in the HR space if your L&D function falls under your purview in HR, this is going to be a podcast that you're going to want to listen through to the end. I know Margaret and Amy also have a special offer from UNCC that they'll speak to at the end of this podcast. So with that lead in, ladies, why don't you just tell our audience a little bit about what it is that each of you all do over there at UNCC?
Great. First of all, thanks so much for having Margaret and I on Training Unleashed podcast. We are so excited about being here today. As you mentioned, Margaret and I work at UNC Charlotte. We're in the Office of Continuing Ed, and we currently offer 1- and 2-day professional development programs and about 24 different certificate programs. The content that we teach is actually not for credit, not for academic credit, but rather it's targeted toward working professionals. We have courses in project and process management, business analysis, management essentials, procurement, supply chain management.
Wow.
We also have all the Lean Six Sigma belts. You name it, we just about have it. So, I mean, we even have a coding and data analytics boot camps, and summer camps also falls under continuing ed. So I have to say, the depth and breadth of what we offer is actually pretty impressive.
Thanks for that, Amy. I think I could probably go to the coding and analytics one and learn a little bit of something. Margaret?
Can I just ask, because first off, it sounds amazing, and I know companies are constantly looking for great content. Is this something you do just locally, or are you able to do this, anywhere?
I actually, for our public enrollment programs, they are offered here in Charlotte at our UNC Charlotte Center City building. But for our corporate custom training, we actually do training not only here in Charlotte, but all over the U.S. A lot of our corporate clients have their headquarters here and then have facilities elsewhere. So we send our instructors wherever our corporate clients need us to go.
Wow, that's amazing. Thank you for that, Amy. Hey, Margaret, how about we haven't heard from you? Tell us a little bit about yourself. What's going on over there at UNC Charlotte?
Yes, absolutely. First, I also want to say thank you to Dan for having me on the podcast. This is great. I manage a number of classes and certificate programs in continuing ed. Our students are adult learners, like Amy was saying, from various corporations, nonprofits, professional associations, as well as those transitioning their careers. So they're looking for professional development and learning the skills necessary to keep up with the needs of their organization. There are 3 programs that I manage that provide a direct benefit to the community. Our Human Resources Certificate, this is geared for individuals that are currently in HR or those that want to get in HR.
Okay.
They'll learn the day-to-day operations of an HR department. It's truly a program that covers the full gamut of HR competencies.
Yeah, and that is huge, right?
Yes. The Learning and Development Certificate also falls under my leadership and is an immersive program that teaches the knowledge, skills, and abilities needed to be a training professional. And once again, we have individuals take this program who are currently in L&D and those business professionals wanting to transition into an L&D department.
Margaret, I think that is so important. At Tortal, we work a lot with organizations who someone ends up in owning a training function, but they don't necessarily have a learning and development background. So even simple methodologies like the ADDIE model are
Right.
foreign to them. So to have a program like this available to a working professional, I think it just enhances their ability to perform and impact their organization. Amazing. I'm sorry, you said you had 3, so I'll let you get back to that third one.
Well, Dan, I was going to add, it's interesting. I went through Margaret's L&D program, and I had been in the L&D industry probably 15 years, and I still walked away with tons of nuggets. I'm like, darn, I should have had this program like earlier in my career. But
You do know that's exactly why we have this podcast, right? Because it doesn't matter how, you're either green and growing or ripe and rotting. So it doesn't matter how good you are, there's always room to grow. And as I like to say, sometimes remind yourself of what you forgot.
Exactly.
Exactly.
One of our newest programs that we launched a year and a half ago is the Design Thinking Certificate Program. The most successful businesses in the world are utilizing this methodology to spark innovation and help solve problems. It really is an awesome program, and it's designed for managers and leaders who are responsible for the decision-making and organizational growth, but it's also for anyone in any organization who wants to add a new and creative approach for their problem solving. Just to give you a little bit more detail, the HR and L&D certificate programs, they're very flexible. Those are one-day classes. They're offered in the day and evening to accommodate the working professional schedule. They can take one class or all of the required classes to earn a certificate, and you could do this in a short period of time. Our Design Thinking Certificate program is going to teach participants about human-centered design, HCD. So if you haven't heard about these buzzwords, design thinking or human-centered design, do a little research because it is huge in businesses today.
Yeah, I mean,
Why don't you quick give us
seeing the world through a different lens. I mean, it's really putting a new spin on the way that people do business.
I couldn't agree more. If you think about the impact that organizations like IDEO have had on the business world back in, the 1980s and the 90s, and then even the growth of the Stanford D School now as probably one of the number 1 recommended degrees to get for any young professional entering into the workforce, according to some of the studies that are out there. It just provides a tremendous amount of flexibility. So for you all to get so far ahead of that power curve and incorporate something as innovative as design thinking, where you're teaching people innovative and creativity, skill and technique that's easily implementable to help them, get projects unstuck and remove barriers to innovations inside their organizations is incredible. And I know, Evan, you were chomping at the bit to say something, so let me give you that.
Yeah. So there are a lot of us on this podcast listening that everything you just said was a little bit Greek.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And
exactly.
so, part of what I try to do is just make sure that we're really educating. So maybe you could just give us a quick little, explanation so we don't have to go research them, or we will go research them because we understand them a little better, what these 2 different concepts are, so that, we get a little taste.
Absolutely. Let me give you an example of what human-centered design is. I want you to think about your TV remote control that's sitting on your coffee table right now. It has, what would you guess, approximately 60 to 70 buttons. I don't know about all of you, but truthfully, Amy and I would probably only use 9 of those buttons.
Oh, do not get me started on the TV remote. I can just engineers back of the room going, yeah, let's see if we can make it do it this too.
Just to add, last night I was at my son's house by myself and literally could not figure out how to turn on his TV.
Exactly.
That's a true story.
Well,
He called me.
That's what it's all about is, keeping that end user in mind. So, for people like me, give me the basics and I'm good to go. Those engineers did not take into account people like me when they were designing it. And that's what this certificate program is all about.
Exactly. I mean, this is where design thinking enters the equation. Human-centered design is an approach to innovation. It's going to focus on the needs, wants, and constraints of the humans, of the people who interact with or are impacted by a product, service, or process. So what we're going to explore is what's the human need behind the business need. I mean, design thinking has been around, and we are now going to apply it in a variety of ways to organizations collaboratively to help them solve complex problems, develop products and services, but it's also being used to design experiences that are going to wow their customer and their employees. I mean, these students are going to walk away with fantastic tools to use in their workplace and be able to design for the people that they're creating for.
And I would encourage, the audience who's listening, when you think in terms of design thinking, don't think about engineer design. Think of this as a mindset, as a method to approach coming up with, maybe unthought of or unintended solutions to,
right.
Accomplishing your business goals. And when every time I've worked in an environment like this, it always amazes me how easy it is, how these very simple tools can be so very effective. And so I think it's great that you all have assembled an environment where you can instill those in the audience. Switching gears on you all, thank you so much for that. But I know that you've worked I don't think anyone on this call wants to admit how many years they've worked in this particular space. So we won't go all the way back to the VCR as a training tool, but maybe let's talk about some of the things that you all have seen, especially, in developing, corporate professionals for the last 3 or 4 years, not you all for the last 3 or 4 years, but those corporate professionals in that environment. What are you seeing as the trends and the changes that are really enhancing productivity, performance, and that you're seeing a lot of folks want to take advantage of?
Absolutely. Well, first, Dan, thanks for telling everyone, not telling everyone how old we are and how long we've been in L&D.
Yeah, I mean,
we call it wise.
Yes, we are. How old do you really think we are? Dude.
I just want to say, for the record, I've seen training tools before the VCR.
Yeah.
They used to send you slideshows with audio tapes. So the VCR was a big advance.
Well, I didn't want to go back to the mimeograph. All right, Evan?
Well, I mean, over the recent years, we've seen prominent changes in L&D because it's like everything else in the workplace. It's constantly evolving and being driven by these technological advances. We've gone from the traditional classroom setting to incorporating a number of these industry trends. So one of them is smartphones, of course. They're by our sides and in our hands 24/7. So the use of these mobile devices in our classroom provides at the moment of need learning. Also in our training programs, we're doing a lot of group work, discussions, and brainstorming. I mean, these participants like to collaborate and have the opportunity to share these ideas and best practices with the other industry professionals in the room from their organizations. So social learning, it's very important. It's a big part of what we do. They're able to hear and share these different perspectives and be able to think differently, which sparks innovation and creativity. Equally important, there's a huge trend where students can share documents on Google Drive or Dropbox for the purpose of class content and resources, as well as to display team projects, presentations. But it's not just a place for storage. I mean, this is also a place where they can create their documents.
Sure, collaboration.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, in corporate custom training, we're actually seeing a huge demand for analytics. It's imperative to build the business case for learning and incorporate measurement to demonstrate that business impact. So, when I'm working with my clients, they have to justify the dollars that they're investing in training. So they have to have metrics in place and they have to analyze those numbers and show the specific results. So, we work with, in the last few years, we worked with over 175 different companies, and across all industries, and it's the same story. They have to be able to show, hey, we're doing this training, and here's the outcome. Here's what the results are going to be. Sort of along the same line, they have to align the training with the overall organizational strategy. By doing that, it really ensures that the training will address actual business needs. We have about 150 courses in our course catalog.
Wow.
Yeah, I know, it's crazy. But as L&D professionals, everything we do should reinforce and move employees in the same positive direction as the organization. So the customization piece that we add to any of the training that we do for our corporate clients, it aligns. We want to make sure that we're reinforcing and aligns with what that company is trying to accomplish. So those are two of the big trends that we're seeing over in corporate custom training.
And even in our learning and development certificate program, we have several classes that address that very topic. One class focuses on analytics called Driving Learning Results with Data. And another class teaches about building the business case for learning, managing learning programs. So, the same thing, very, very important.
I want to compliment you guys on the fact that you do such great custom work. Because so many times people take, a program and they just, plug it in. But if that program hasn't been really customized for the workforce, the learners are a little confused because it doesn't match necessarily the methodologies and the jargon that the organization's been stressing. And, some of it doesn't really relate. It's the customizing. So every minute is valuable to the learner. Then the learner really, then the learner gets the most out of it, and the people are most excited about attending it. And, it's the whole premise of the show is great training unleashes results.
Right.
And the converse to that is really bad training stains the industry, stains the training department. So when training, when you put on training that's genericized within your own organization, that's part of what gives training a bad word is people go, that wasn't about me.
Right.
And it doesn't take a lot to make it about me. You know what I'm saying? You take the time to learn what the organization is focused on so that you can build the training around that. People are going to go, wow.
Exactly.
I think you're doing the right thing. And I guess to the audience, I'm just stress the importance of making sure that everything you do, it's like, perfect fit for the organization. Now, it's a little different when you're sending an individual out for additional training where they're going to a group environment because, if you're training one person, it's kind of not cost efficient to try to create a custom training for a single person.
Sure. Hey, Evan, I want to bring us back. I think you're making some valid points here. Just to recap for our audience, we've got this use of mobile devices and social learning and the Google Drive and Dropbox that Margaret shared with us. Amy was talking about the demand for analytics and aligning their training strategy to the goal. Just a quick recap. But Margaret and Amy, anything else there along those lines as far as hot trends are concerned in the L&D space?
Microlearning is still, it is really starting to take off, and it's taken on a bigger role. And part of it is, we're finding it's harder and harder to pull employees out of their jobs. Yet, they're still expected to have all these skill sets to perform their jobs.
Right.
So we're getting more and more requests to do shorter bursts of training.
Sure.
So one of the nice things is we offer a lot of flexibility on the length of the programs. So, we do a lot of lunch and learns and breakfast briefs. And then we do a lot of, we supplement some of the in-class training with, job aids and other things. So, one of the things, again, with corporate custom training is, along the same lines of microlearning, we spend a lot of time on the upfront getting to know our corporate clients, their processes, their terminology. And so that way, when we are actually in the class with them, we make the most of that time. So I have to say, one of my favorite things to do with my job is to take a tour of an organization's facility. I've seen how breakfast sandwiches are made and how
Sure.
plastic is molded into bed liners and how MRI machines are repaired. I've even gotten to drive a bulldozer.
Well, that's pretty awesome. It's occupational hazard, right? I learned how to do a little bit of self-hypnosis in working with one of our folks. I'm not sure where I'm going to use that, but
actually, I was kidding about the bulldozer. United Rentals told me, heck no. The farthest I got was I got to sit on it, and they took my picture, and that was it.
So micro-learning's taking off in the space. I think anybody who's been around has heard that. If the term is new to you, it's not necessarily an entirely new concept. I think everyone here knows that. But I think the organizations are starting to understand the validity of making information easily accessible at the moment of need and not overly voluminous, but maybe just to get through a process or procedure. Margaret, last comment on the hot new topics thing?
Yeah, I have one more I thought I'd add, and that would be, the push to earn professional certifications. It's a credential to show their expertise. They want an acronym to put on their resume and the marketability that comes along with it. So, for example, in L&D, professionals may look for the APTD or CPLP, which is the Associate Professional or the Certified Professional in Learning Performance from ATD Certification Institute. My HR professionals out there that have several years of experience, they're looking at HR certifications, either by HRCI or by SHRM. So they're looking at the professional in human resource or a senior professional in human resource or the CPSCP. I mean, many individuals don't have the time or the money to earn an academic degree. So they're opting to spend their resources on targeted content that they can utilize and in their workplace and make them marketable.
We've seen that same trend too, Margaret, where organizations will, and quite frankly, the age group that's moving into the workforce is moving further and further away from having to go get a 4-year degree.
Yes.
And moving more towards certifications to enter into the workforce and build their workforce education over the period of 5 or 6 years, or going to 1 or 2 year degrees from a technical perspective. Especially, we see that happening a lot in the manufacturing and advanced manufacturing space, along with everything we see happening in automotive distribution, and heavy trucking. So I think it's great that you all have recognized that trend. I wanted to go back really quickly in micro-learning. I know you all are producing a lot of stuff. Do you have any quick, 1, 2, 3 top tips for our folks in the audience as it relates to market learning? Here's the right thing to do, and here's the way. I always say there's never a wrong way, but there is a good, better, and best. So maybe you could give them 1 or 2 best practices if they're thinking about micro learning as a tool they want to use in their organization.
We're so glad you're listening to this episode of Training Unleashed, brought to you by Tortal Training. The difference between Tortal Training and other online training companies is we're primarily a training company with technology, rather than a technology company that does training. Want to find out more? Just go to tortal.net. That's Tortal, tortal.net.
What we use in all of our public enrollment programs is we're using microlearning as a reinforcement tool. So I give them downloadable PDFs and job aids. I have them take a look at all kinds of downloadable documents for the use of reinforcing something that they've learned. Sometimes we'll even do assessments prior to the class. Many of the times we're using it for after the class. But Amy, you may...
From a performance support perspective, right, Margaret?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're doing the same thing with corporate and custom training. And then we also do, sort of along the same lines of the flipped classroom. We'll use some micro-learning where we're having them, again, watch a video or, take a quick quiz or an assessment, whatever it might be. Part of it is, depending on the company, just making sure that it's focused and it's specific to who the learner is and who
Right.
the audience is. You know, if you've got an audience, maybe it's manufacturing and they don't have access to, watching videos, then maybe it is a job aid that they can post up next to one of the machines. So it's got to be targeted and for the specific audience.
Mm-hmm.
Margaret and Amy, I want to thank you. I could stop right now and make sure this point gets hammered home, right? Because our folks who maybe aren't in the L&D space but are over the function and don't have as much experience because they were jammed in there for whatever reason, they hear microlearning, they go, yes, that's my solution. And you've heard it now, ladies and gentlemen, you've heard it from Tortal at industry conference, and now you've heard it from two well-respected thought leaders in the space at the college in charge of business education for what is a pretty robust environment. Microlearning is not there to introduce new topics. It's there to support other learning interactions. So used appropriately, it works really well. I'm gonna stop this conversation on this line, and we could probably talk forever on all the changes. But let's move on to the folks you're actually working with. Not necessarily the tools of the trade that are really hot, but in what you're seeing in industry and what you're seeing with just the obvious wide range of types of organizations that you're working with. What are the hot topics that are out there? What do you see people really, really wanting to get their brains wrapped around?
Yeah, there's a variety of courses that are hot right now, but some of the top ones that we're getting the most requests for: communication strategies. This is a course that we deliver all day, every day, across all industries. For some reason, people have a difficult time listening to one another. I don't get that.
What do you mean? I'm sorry, what did you say?
What? You've been talking to my husband, haven't you? The critical thinking is also one of those top skills that individuals have to have in today's workforce.
Mm-hmm.
You absolutely have to be able to think through problems and come up with different solutions. Obviously, there's a lot of stuff going on in the workplace, so we've got a course called Embracing and Managing Change, and it's a program that we deliver a lot of too. People have to sort of learn how to go with the flow.
Yes, and change management and organization development, it's definitely a hot topic right now, and we deliver the actual course, Change Management, No D, as part of our HR certificate. As a matter of fact, it's a required course because of the programs that and what these individuals are facing in the workplace. They have to navigate through change.
Okay, so I'm representing all of the listeners out there. When you say no D, what does that mean?
When we say OD, it is organization development.
I thought you said no D. I had never heard of no D before.
No. Analyzing an organization.
Okay, now I get it.
Okay.
Is there a listening component to your? No, I'm just playing. I know sometimes the audio is difficult. That's really amazing. So communications, critical thinking, change management, embracing the change. Especially with the speed of what is happening in a typical business environment nowadays, or what you are seeing. And then I also, I noticed those from the human condition perspective. And
Yes.
I feel like if a learner's mastered those, that they almost will help the learner be more perceived as a leader, because I certainly see any one of those as part of a leadership curriculum as well.
Absolutely. Dan,
Yes.
one of the other, to round out the list, coaching for performance
Yes.
also should be on there.
Mm-hmm.
Project management and emotional intelligence.
Oh,
Those
yes.
are the other three that we absolutely have to add to your list.
Yes.
This as a communications professional in a number of different spaces, it makes me it's pleased. I actually got my degree right. I'm using it every day. How many people get to see that, right? That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. So again, just a quick recap: that coaching for performance, coaching for success, and then the emotional intelligence and project management. I think for our audience, for some folks, it's going to be really clear what coaching for performance is. But I think other folks may want just a little bit of a deeper definition on that. If you don't mind, can I get you to talk about coaching for performance in 30 seconds or less? What's the end result there?
As a leader or a supervisor, sometimes you have to have those hard or conversations with your employees, maybe about their specific performance. And for some people, they have a really hard time giving that critical feedback. So coaching for performance is really how to help a person understand where there is room for improvement and how to specifically move them in the right direction.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, you nailed that in 27 seconds. Fantastic.
Good for you.
All right, so now we've got all these changes. We've got changes in what's happening, the tools and the trades and the techniques and the methodologies. We've got this rapidly switching, changing workforce. We've got changing industry. I mean, given the fluid environment, extremely fluid, almost like I feel like it's a rapid river that you all are constantly swimming in.
Yes.
How do you decide what to deliver, what to create? How do you even navigate those waters?
Dan, we do our due diligence. We don't put together a program without vetting it with trusted sources. So we rely on a lot of people to help us with our programs. One of them is advisory boards. I mean, we have advisory boards made up of all these subject matter experts in the field. We have some really amazing individuals helping us develop our programs. I mean, we have board members from Duke and Bank of America, Delhaize, Walmart, TIA, Kraft.
Just
XPO.
A couple little small companies.
Yeah, small companies.
Yeah.
And we also have partnerships with seasoned industry practitioners in the field, and they're a great resource for us because as a business partner, they're sharing their best practices and successful outcomes, and this helps us keep on track. And in addition, we actually listen to the feedback from our alumni, our past participants. And remember, these are our business professionals, our adult learners, taking our continuing education classes. They've been through our programs, and they know what's needed and valuable. So their critical feedback for improvement is key to our success, no doubt. And Amy and I, along with all of our program directors in our department, attend monthly professional association meetings and conferences. So we, as well, can keep up to date with all the latest trends. For those of you listening, I may have sat next to you at a local ATD or SHRM meeting.
I have no idea what you're talking about. None at all.
Oh, come on, Dan. I saw you going back for seconds at last week.
The food's delicious. What do you want me to say?
I know.
But can we just point this out, because I think this is important. A lot of people in training don't understand that there are local organizations where they can go to be better. And I constantly hear this from people, and attending your local ATD meetings are important, and SHRM meetings, and maybe you guys could elaborate a little bit about, if you're a training professional and you want to be connected in the community.
Yes.
I know it's a little off the topic, but I think it's an important question. What would you do? And I know Dan and our team at Tortal is very much involved in being connected and learning.
For years, I belonged to national organizations as well as local chapter. I think for individuals who are in the field, they need to immerse themselves with other professionals in the field. I have 6 organizations that I go to monthly, and truly there is ATD, the Association.
Wow, that's more than me.
Yeah, Association for Talent Development. There's SHRM, the Society for Human Resource Management. And so there's the International Society for Performance Improvement. We used to have an organization development local chapter, and that's changed its names a few times, but there's still group organizations. The national organizations are great for webinars and for information to share, but there's nothing like going to an association meeting individuals within that environment that are doing the same things you're doing, and they could possibly, by sharing ideas and sharing best practices, help you with.
Yeah, I mean, it's great. You can sit next to somebody and talk about maybe a project you're working on, and they've gone through that already, and they're like, yeah, why don't you try this, or this? And
Right.
so, I mean, it's really cool. I mean, all these, meetings have, the planned meeting or the planned program, but sometimes it's just that networking, while you are breaking bread together, that where you get some of your best ideas.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
This takes me back to design thinking, where you design and develop not in a vacuum, but with your actual learner in mind and your intended result or behavior change, and some other tenets of design thinking, like the collective intellect will win over the lone genius every single day, and gathering information from maybe unexpected resources, asking yourself killer questions.
Yes.
It's brilliant because. I'm listening to you all talk about how you go through this process, and you're using the things that you have developed programs around to help people with their business on yourself and your own business. It's like the cobbler finally has shoes for his kids.
Yes.
Well, it broke the mold.
Yes. But I just want to add, on top of that, you've got all these associations, and then you have accrediting organizations that are setting the standards for these professionals in our field. And so we align our programs with these organizations, such as the Learning and Development Certificate Program that we have is aligned with the ATD competency model. I mean, they've done years of research. They've redone that competency model to make sure that if you want to be successful as an L&D professional, you need to hone in on these competencies. So
I think some of our listeners were around when it was just one competency.
Exactly. Exactly. But the HR, we do the same thing with SHRM and HRCI, their bodies of knowledge. I mean, even my meeting and event planning, I have a hospitality program, and I align it with the premier council that sets the standards for that field.
I want to just take a moment here and just point this out. On this recording, and I'm going to remove myself from this, we have three of the brightest professionals in the learning and development area who are doing nothing but continuing to learn.
Yes.
And so this is the challenge I want to give to everyone listening. If you're in learning and development, are you leading by example? Mm-hmm. Because people pay attention. Mm-hmm. And if you're running a learning and development training, whatever you want to call it, department within your organization, if you aren't yourself learning and developing, there's something wrong. And if your team isn't there learning and developing, there's something wrong. Mm-hmm. And at Tortal, we're totally aligned with constantly learning and developing. And it's so I just want to point out three of the best people in the industry, and that's what they do. Keep getting better.
Thank you for that, Evan. That's a fine compliment. I appreciate that. I will agree with Margaret and Amy. I'm still working on becoming someone in that nature. Well, hey, listen, I want to make sure that we get everything done in a nice period of time for our learners. We've spent a little more time here because the subject warrants it. But let's wrap up with a bit of a final couple questions for you all. Obviously, you've just talked about the myriad of things that you do over there at UNC Charlotte and all the different programs. But all right, so let's give our audience a little bit of a feel. And maybe just sort of a blatant, our programs are better because why? I'm a corporate learner. I want to do some professional development. I'm looking through your series of things. There's a lot of things that you choose from. They all sound great, but what's going to be awesome for me when I show up at one of your programs?
Well, Margaret was talking about design. We've talked a lot about design thinking today. And actually, that's one of the things that we incorporate, that user experience design thinking when we're putting together these programs. So our programs are all about engagement, plain and simple. We want our participants to come to class. We want them to learn new concepts. We want them to have the opportunity to try out some of these topics and then take them back to their respective organizations and then implement them. So we provide them with this, safe environment where they can come in, roll up their sleeves, get messy, try it out. One of my favorite sayings is knowledge doesn't change behavior. So when you come to class and learn all these new things, unless you're applying them, it really doesn't mean a thing. So,
Sure.
We try to find different ways to build engagement in all of our programs. So, they're taking assessments in class. They're, working on case studies. They're, voting with sticky dots, whatever it might be. We try to make it as experiential as possible so that what we're doing, they're having fun, but it's done in such a way that it drives the concept home and gives them, again, a place to practice it and put it into place in a safe environment.
So we've got this workshop versus lecture environment, if I could just boil it down to one short.
Exactly. We spend about 10 or 15 minutes on a topic, and then we have them moving. We break them out into groups and have them doing something. So, if somebody comes to one of our programs, they are not going to sit there for 8 hours or 4 hours or however long the program is. We're going to have them up, moving, playing with Tinker Toys or whatever it might be.
They didn't like doing it in high school. Why would they like doing it now, right? Not Death by PowerPoint. Please, no.
Exactly.
Adults have a shorter attention span than a third grader.
True story.
Exactly. We really try to put to practice practicum experience. Learn by doing. We're trying to get them to apply what they learned in the real world. So in our design thinking certificate program, the students actually went out in the community to do ethnographic research for their design project.
Wow.
They observed, they researched, got their hands dirty to see how they can improve the light rail transport experience. So in their research, they talked to riders, they went through various methods of purchasing a ticket, they actually rode the light rail, researched what was online, and wrote up their findings. They brought a whole new perspective to bring back to their organizations. By the same token, in my hospitality program, the meeting and event planning program, the students have to volunteer 10 hours in the industry to achieve their certificate. We have people volunteering at nonprofits and schools and venues, volunteering with event designers in town, also trade shows. So I conduct classes at special venues.
Wow.
And several have received job offers because they're able to show the prospective employer how they work.
Now, I want to. If you're an employer sending your folks to UNC Charlotte,
yes,
No.
They're
just going to thank you.
Exactly.
The job offers are people looking. So it doesn't matter whether a student's out there getting their HR certificate or an L&D certificate or learning about hospitality or choosing from, one of many or hundreds of programs that you have. Your point being, they're going to have an experience,
yes,
and not just a whole bunch of book learning and lecture. So I'm going to piggyback on top of this again. Being in this space, where a lot of times we're developing resources that we can hand to someone to facilitate who may or may not be the subject matter expert. Can you all speak to a little bit about who's leading all these great events for you?
Absolutely. Our instructors are amazing. We do have some faculty teaching for us, but a majority of our facilitators, they're world-class industry practitioners. They bring real-world experience and expertise in the classroom, and many have a national presence.
That's really true. These folks bring a lot of cool stories to class, and they're candid about what they share with our participants. In a lot of cases, they're actually helping our participants learn from their mistakes.
Yes, and a lot of them are credentialed in their respective industries. So we do have lawyers and judges facilitating in our paralegal program.
Right.
And we have project management program facilitators that are all certified as PMPs. And all our human resources instructors for our certification classes are certified by HRCI and SHRM as well. Even in my meeting and event planning program, we have, the top 25 who's who in the industry. And let's just say our craft beer essentials program instructors' talents don't just excel in drinking beer.
Although that should be definitely one of the qualifications to teach in that program.
Evan, I've just figured out what I'm going to do, one of my things for professional development this year.
Exactly.
Hey, listen, we're getting to the close of our hour, so just a few things really quickly. In just a few brief words for you all, what can our audience hope to get out of just some real tangible and maybe some intangible benefits from a well-structured L&D program, or take advantage of your program?
Yeah. Well, L&D is the framework for helping employees to develop their personal and organizational skills, knowledge, and abilities. So, one of the things that we see is that organizations are spending a boatload of money on training. Last year, according to Training Magazine, organizations spent $90.6 billion on training. I mean, that is a lot of cash. I don't know about you, but yeah, I mean, if my organization is going to spend money on me, they want to know that they're going to get something out of it. Mm-hmm. So from a corporate custom training standpoint, I would say, really focus in on what specific skills and abilities you want these people to have in your organization. What are the skills that are most important? And then invest in your employees and help them acquire those skills. By doing that, it's going to help them move forward and your organization.
Yes. And, as far as the benefits of, learning and development, it can't be overemphasized because it helps with employee motivation and satisfaction. I mean, obviously, there's study after study of employees that are engaged and motivated feel valued. I mean, they're able to grow and develop, and they're more likely to stay with an organization.
This is actually twofold. One, if you've got folks that are staying with your organization, the staff retention lowers your organization's operating costs. And number two, learning increases productivity, effectiveness, agility, innovation, quality of work, the list goes on.
Yeah, and it also adds to a positive organizational climate because if your employees are confident, they feel good and satisfied about their job and responsibilities, and they're being challenged, it creates a positive perception and a feeling about the overall organization.
I love it. I know the old saying used to be train the best and keep the rest. But I think the new saying that's coming out from a pretty successful guy, I think he does something with Virgin and does things to go into space and what have you. But his quote was, you want to go ahead and train them and then give them a reason to stay. So that's just couldn't agree more with all that you're saying. Obviously playing into so many other things, especially in the HR space, but L&D is a critical component to that level of success. First of all, I want to thank both of you all for coming today. Evan, thank you for being on the call and adding your expertise from an organizational management perspective. But Margaret, Amy, I understand you also have a special offer for our listeners. So let me give you a few minutes to do that.
Thank you. Amy and I had a blast here today, so thank you so much. We'd love to offer a 15% discount to today's podcast listeners for corporate and custom training, as well as the programs that we mentioned in today's podcast, the human resources, learning and development, and design thinking certificate programs. So if you want to take advantage of this offer, all you have to do is call the registration department, which is 704-687-8900. And they're going to be able to apply the discount and then help you expedite the registration process. So we would love to offer that.
All right. Well, Amy and Margaret, thank you for that. You heard it here, ladies and gentlemen. 15% off these amazing courses, which can increase the productivity and performance of your workforce or yourself personally. So I don't think you have to be coming here from a corporate employer in order to take advantage of that discount if you're just looking to get some additional information. Again, that number is 704-687-8900. And say that you heard it on Training Unleashed. Group, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure speaking with you. I've learned something new today, and I'm looking forward to talking to you all some more at another time.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, Dan.
Training Unleashed is brought to you by Tortal Training, specializing in e-learning and interactive online training solutions for corporate, government, nonprofit, and franchise organizations. Tortal makes effective training easier. Just go to tortal.net to gain access to real-world tools that can make a difference. That's tortal.net, Tortal, tortal.net.